Well, we are the ninth largest unit district in Illinois, which puts us a little bit west of Chicago in Naperville, a suburb. We have about 22 square miles. Then we serve Naperville, Bolingbrook, some kids from Lisle and Woodbridge. As a unit district, we do have 23 different school sites. So we have an early childhood center, 14 elementary schools, 5 junior highs, 2 comprehensive high schools, and 1 connection center for our students post high school. We have about 16,500 plus kids in the district. And of that, we have a 97% graduates attend college. We have about 2,500 staff members. Of that, about 1,400 are full-time certified staff.
That's a lot of students to support.
Yes, yes.
So what is your role? How do you support those students?
Sure. So I serve as Director of Innovation and Learning here in the district. And so my job is kind of unique because I spend a big chunk of my time in the curriculum and instruction department, but I also have a foot in our instructional technology department. So I kind of split my time between both. This is the 26th year I've been in education, and all of that I have had some work within our career and technical education area. So I started as a business education teacher and kind of moved through several different districts, been a curriculum director before. And so my role now is really working with our college and career readiness and our career and technical education programming. I work with a lot of our blended and online learning and anything else that might get put under that umbrella. So.
Yeah, I know we've talked a lot that you've been dealing with a lot of kind of a catch-all situation now, at the district as things have come up.
Sure.
So you've had SchooLinks for how long now?
So we implemented in, oh geez, you guys are going to stump me. It's probably our 4th year with you all. It's hard to, we implemented officially with students the fall of 2019. But we had a lot of lead up time to that with preparing for that implementation, with training. And then we also had kind of an interesting year with pandemic and virtual learning that happened kind of in the midst of our implementation. So yeah, we've been with you all since 2019.
I'll definitely want to hear more about that implementation. But before we even get to that, what made you look for a college readiness platform? What made you want to go out and say, hey, we really need something here?
Sure. So we actually have 2 strategic goals in our district around college and career readiness. One really is laser focused on working with our 6th through 12 counseling program and really finding ways to support students in their readiness, right? Like, so we even developed curriculum that we deliver with our counselors around standards in college and career readiness, post-secondary research and selection, and financial literacy. The other kind of strategic goal we have is around providing opportunities for our students, especially at the high school level, to participate in programs of study that are centered around different career clusters. And ultimately, some of our kiddos can earn a diploma endorsement in those particular career cluster areas, provided they've done, the coursework, they've got some early college credit, they have done some authentic learning in the workplace, participated in some team challenges. So, that's kind of what was happening locally for us. And along, simultaneously, you'll know that, nationally, and then also at the state level in Illinois, some legislation came into place that said, we want to also start measuring students' progress and success towards college and career readiness. So some new indicators came out for us as districts to start collecting beyond just a test score for a student, right? Like we need more of a portfolio of students' experiences so that they could show success in their progression in college and career readiness. So both to support some of the nuts and bolts work that we knew we had, and then also on the back end for us thinking about the amount of data and the different types of data that we were going to be collecting, we knew we needed some help. we had some platforms, both at the junior high and high school level, different platforms, sporadic use and for different purposes. A lot of it was for the college application process. So one of our other goals was really to build that consistency for our students and for our staff. So we would have a consistent tool that would meet the needs of a 6th grader all the way through a 12th grader, and move with those students. So that kind of drove us to looking for that platform, and doing some research just to see what was out there.
I mean, that we hear that a lot, the whole, your district was kind of far ahead, that you knew you were going to have to collect more data. Right. And so you went to get a platform, which is great for you. We hear all the time from districts the opposite of oh my God, we need help. I have 800 spreadsheets that I'm emailing to people. Right. It's great that you and Naperville got ahead of that. Right. So you saw that coming on the horizon. So what did you actually do to evaluate platforms? Was it an RFP? Yeah. Did you have a student committee? Did you just throw a dart at a wall and landed on a good logo? Like, what was the process?
No, for this one, because of all those big critical factors that I just mentioned, we actually did do a formal RFP process where, and it was pretty detailed. Like, we looked at just what you said, a lot of those indicators that we were going to need, and we looked at the curriculum and the tools that we wanted, and we really had a lot of ask in our request that we put out. So we had some responses. We did a formal vetting process. We brought in users across our platform, administrators at the district office, building administrators, counselors, teacher leaders. They came in, we did some vendor demonstrations and had a formal, rubric that we assessed everything on. And when it was looking like, SchooLinks was coming out as one of those top vendor, we actually did say to some students, could you get into this platform and take a look at us and give us some feedback? But, we did it more on the back end of, this is the tool we have vetted and it's come out on top, and just as kind of a confirmation of what we thought they were going to say, we did ask some of those student users to give us some feedback. So yeah, we did a formal, huge process.
So and what did the students say? Were they like, oh yeah, this is great, that we'd use this 100%? Like, what was that feedback like?
So it was kind of interesting, because you're just asking them for kind of an isolated snapshot without really a lot of context, and the feedback was very good. I mean, our biggest driver, I would say, even in the RFP process for all of us, was looking for something that was really, really student focused, right? They kept the students' needs in the front and center in every part of the tool. We wanted it to be friendly. We wanted it to be inviting, because as a lot of the work we are doing in our counseling curriculum, for example, it's not graded. It's not necessarily a class period. So in order to have students and families really want to engage in that learning, it also needed to be inviting and engaging tool. So, and for the adults, it really did need to be user friendly. So those were kind of a lot of the things. And honestly, that's what we heard back, not just from our RFP review team, but even some of those students who got early exposure. So that helped us finalize our decision.
It's so interesting, because the initial part, you talked about how you knew you needed something from a data perspective, from a reporting perspective, to make your staff more efficient. But then when you finally got through the process, it was like, oh, and we also, but the number one is we need people to use it.
100%. That's probably the number one driver, no matter what. I mean, we as adults can send multiple spreadsheets if we have to, right? If it's the best tool, right. But ultimately, if the end users aren't in the platform, navigating easily, engaged in the learning, then it's not doing its job.
So you mentioned the implementation process earlier, and I kind of jumped to the decision part first, but now you made the decision, right? You're getting ready to implement. How'd that go? Was it like we flipped the switch, or
No, we actually, we're very strategic in how we approached it. So, we had the RFP process closed in, mid-year. So like December, January timeframe. And so we had made that decision and started our conversations with SchooLinks, and started kind of working to how this implementation would be. So what we did is I had an opportunity probably around that February timeframe where I would be able to get all of our counselors, 6 through 12, in one location at one spot. And so we actually started then. We had SchooLinks came in, Katie came in and did a training and an overview of what the platform can do and how it will work. And we engaged in that full day kind of institute with the counselors to start with in February. Data teams are actually starting kind of getting the feeds together and the information, because we were moving our entire course book as well into the platform. And I'll speak to that later about, we've actually moved our course selection process into SchooLinks as well. So, but we started with our counseling team, very strategic, because they were going to be delivering that curriculum and they were going to be the ones feeding students into the platform. End of the school year, May timeframe, we actually designed some summer virtual modules to help onboard staff members, the counselors over the summer. So they were easy, maybe 6 different little tutorials that SchooLinks provided, and we encouraged and built some structure around having all of our counselors engage in that learning. And so that happened, over the summer months. In the spring, we also thought, as I mentioned, we have all those different, we have 5 junior highs and 2 high schools. So we have a lot of sites that we're going to be using this, right? So what we decided to do was almost a train the trainer model. So we talked with our building leadership and identified at our junior highs 1 counselor from each junior high and then 2 from each of our high schools to become what we called our SchooLinks champions. And so that team engaged in more intensive onboarding and more intensive training. I actually built a stipend position for those staff members that took through the summer and through the first 2 years of implementation. So their role was really to be the building lead in SchooLinks. So if I were in that department, I would come to that SchooLinks champion if I had questions or I had feedback or I had issues that might have been happening. So we kind of built that leadership structure to help with our implementation. And then in August, right before school started, we did a face-to-face, boots on the ground. We brought trainers from SchooLinks in and we did a full day professional learning for our counselors. We repeated that again in November before we went into school course selection process. But and then we continued with monthly SchooLinks champions calls. So we did virtual calls every month and little team meetings. The IT director who really helped lead this with me, he and we had weekly meetings. Every Tuesday morning we would sit and kind of coordinate what was happening. So like I said, it was very strategic. We tried to build some structure that would help support learning. We focused on the counselors first. We set a date of, I think it was like September 29th, all students would be in the program. So like we set some very measurable goals for that first year of implementation.
It sounds like a very structured rollout. And I
Yeah.
love the SchooLinks champion, model there where, because, we do our best with the chat and having the implementation manager, all those things, but hearing from someone in the district say, hey, this is how I'm using it and it can make your life better, clearly is that extra mile.
It actually helped us just, kind of get that point person for each building to give feedback and to help carry communication and messages. But I will say the champions became very adept at using SchooLinks has such a great help feature. It's very responsive, and anytime during the day they would actually contact and provide feedback and get questions answered for themselves or for their department. So that actually led to a neat partnership as well.
So it sounds like the staff reaction was pretty positive because of the structure. It kind of had to be. What was the student reaction, if there was one?
Yeah, well, we had some very, the kids were very successful at navigating and getting into the tool and starting to learn. Um, like I said, we had set a date that we wanted to have everybody exposed to it and every student to get kind of an onboarding lesson. And we were up in the probably 90% completion rate that first year with kids getting in there. We also did a hard push with our parents around um, the fall conferences, parent teacher conference timeframe. We had communication that went out to also invite our parents to get in as viewers into the program. And then quite frankly, we used it with our curriculum. So for me, it was, every probably quarter, we had lessons developed at each grade level that a counselor would either push into a classroom to deliver, or we'd have like a homeroom structure sort of schedule where the lesson would be delivered. So every quarter, we were using SchooLinks either to help us deliver the lesson or to be the portal where we would collect that evidence of learning. So the feedback we had on that was, again, students found it easy to use. It integrated really, really well. We're a one-to-one district and we use Google EDU. So it integrated really well with any of the homegrown documents and tools that kids wanted to upload and use. We were successful in getting our courses in there so kids could actually see their schedules and their some of their own personal data. So I do think it was we've had a good response. We have our own work around. Probably the paradigm shift for us, the biggest one has been in the 4-year planning versus an annual course selection. So really getting people to think 4 years in advance and work backwards has been a paradigm shift for us, just not just with the tool, but with just our work.
Yeah, could you expand on that a little bit about how
Sure.
your district is embracing course selection within SchooLinks and how that's changed?
Yeah, so we wanted to when a student went into the portal that they could actually get a snapshot of the work they're doing with the counselors, the coursework that they've been taking, that they could see some of the test scores and things that we load into there. So some of their indicators, we wanted the students and the parents to be able to see that. And we also wanted a streamlined way for them to kind of record, if we're encouraging that purposeful planning and that purposeful course selection, we wanted them to kind of think from the end in mind. So that shift to, I'm not just picking classes to check the box for next year, right? And to meet my graduation requirement, but I'm picking courses and selecting pathways based on what my end goal is. So if I want to go on to become a teacher or an educator, I'm looking for those opportunities to engage in that type of learning. So with that, we put, we have all of our courses, all of our offerings in the SchooLinks platform with course codes and all that by department with course descriptions and prerequisites. We also loaded, so it kind of crosswalks for us against the requirements for graduation. It also gives a student opportunity to see the different course career pathway areas that we offer. So that also is visible in SchooLinks and students can select. That starts for us. And then kids revisit that every year, right? So like you make your plan, but maybe you didn't like the classes you picked and you need to change it. So there is an annual revision of that. And that usually happens for us around, it's between December and January when kids are getting in there and either creating their 4-year plan or retooling it and deciding if they want to pick different classes. That happens across 6th or 8th grade through 12th grade. And then they meet with their counselors to confirm that. And then about early February, we take whatever has been put into SchooLinks as my selection for next year, not just the 4 years, but for next year. And we pull that data out and put it into our, we use Infinite Campus as our system. And so we put that in to start creating schedules and determining FTE and all the kind of back end stuff that we do to get ready for the next school year. So
that's really great. I think back on my time in junior high and high school, and I don't even think I ever thought about what next year's classes would be until, that middle of August when I'm like, oh, I have to go, summer's over and I have to go back to school. I wonder what I'm taking this year, kind of thing, and for it to you to move that so far, forward into like a real planning process, it must make not only the counselors, but it must make the students feel more empowered as well.
We hope so. And also parents, right? So that they can help kind of navigate that with them. But, in all transparency, we implemented that. We did that once, and then kind of the world shut down. So we had to do it virtually the second year, which was very successful. And so what we're concentrating on this year is, making sure that we have everything in there that's changed or updated and kind of robust, and making sure that the language that they're using is consistent, and really also focusing on how can we communicate better with our stakeholders about the 4-year plan, right? So yeah, we're not perfect, but I think it's been each year we've done it, we've learned, and it's getting more streamlined. I guess is what I'm trying to say. A little more natural. People are getting more inclined on how to use it and how to do it. So
every year we get a little better, right? That's kind of how K-12 education works, right?
Yes.
So we've talked about a lot of different facets, just what kind of results have you seen? What kind of adoption, what kind of metrics, what kind of, what's been the results so far? I guess is the way I would say it.
Well, so far, we have been pretty successful. We have about 95% of our high schools, our 612 students have completed like the Find Your Path, which is kind of their first onboarding piece to get into SchooLinks. We're at about 85% of our high school kids have done the career assessments survey in there as well. Over this one, I really like our 12th graders, which, we're kind of looking at strategically because they're getting ready to leave and head off. We have about 94% of them have logged into SchooLinks already 3 times this year. So like to do some of these different things, which is a good indicator for us of how many times going in. Last year, even with kind of the remote structure we had over 94% of our students successfully, without any questions or issues, were able to submit their course plans and get them approved in SchooLinks. And then we had, of that class that graduated last year, 93% of them were able to just request and send their documents to colleges even through SchooLinks and complete their application process through SchooLinks. So those to me are up in your 80s and 90s% of success, even when a good chunk of our school last year in Illinois, we were remote for fully virtual. So that's a good stepping stone for us. I think what we're doing this year is we've been very strategic of keeping our counselors as kind of the main users as the adults in the tool. This year, we're going to actually start training and adding some of our specialists. So we're adding some of our special education teachers into the program, some of our EL teachers into the program, so that they can also start having those college and career conversations and planning conversations with their students. Our career and tech ed teachers are really going to be added to the platform this year because they want to use it just as an instructional tool, right? They're talking about industry trends and career opportunities and what kind of learning goes with that in their classes. So they want to actually use it as an instructional tool tied to their content. So we're going to target those. We are also going to be working with our activities directors at each of the high schools to find out. There's a feature in SchooLinks that has experience tracking, right? So I can record volunteer hours, I can record my involvement in co-curriculars and extracurriculars. So we're going to really build some structure around how are the adults going to help manage and support that part of the tool. And then ultimately, we have a really strong industry business partnership in the Naperville area. And so our ultimate goal is how can we also start getting some of those local internships and job shadows and opportunities to surface into the tool as well. So we got a lot ahead of us, but I think so far we're off to a good start.
Yeah, I mean, those stats were all, I agree, high 80s, 90s, that's more than I hear from most districts. And I love how you've talked about how it's, your goal this year, next year is really to branch out and get more people involved in that college planning, career exploration conversation with students, because it's not just the responsibility of counselors and career advisors,
Yes.
It's the responsibility of the district.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So
and in partnership with parents at home. I mean, I can't stress that enough, that we can't do it all. And so that's why that user-friendly tool, that ability to kind of keep everything in one portal, it was so important. So whatever user is going in can see kind of those responses that kids have, the plans that kids are making, the colleges that they're favoring. So that's why that consistent structure, we talked about at the very beginning, for us was so important, is so important.
Yeah. So last question.
Okay.
What's your advice for new districts that are considering bringing on SchooLinks?
Well, I think each district has to approach it differently, right? Like we in Naperville, you heard, like, very strategic and step by step. And that may not be the way, you approach it, but I guess the thing I would say is our partnership with SchooLinks, we have found to be extremely responsive. The product is continually improving. So, the way it looks this week might look completely different next week, or not completely, but like upgraded and changed. And I can't stress enough that it's student focused. And I think when you're making that decision for whatever pace or whatever work you're going to implement, keeping that student front and center in that decision making is probably the best. So my advice would be, talk to people who are using it, get yourself a demo, go through and see what kind of problems you're trying to solve, and see how that tool can help support and manage and organize some of that back end information for you.